So earlier today, I was going through my spreadsheet for a lot of the long-term goals that I have and the financial cost to achieve those goals. And as I was doing that, I was thinking about the nature of life goals, the nature of setting goals for yourself. That's a lot of the use of the word goals. Um, and I felt like this would make a pretty good video, a pretty solid video. And the reason why is because I think that oftentimes people get so caught up in the things they want to achieve for themselves, they never actually sit down and organize them and structure them. And I think that's a very important thing. In reality, all goals can be organized into three categories, right? Like short-term goals, what I call midterm goals, and then long-term goals. Now, in terms of how I define these, short-term goals are anything, short-term goals are anything that can be achieved within like a year, right? So like I want to lose weight. I want to lose like 20 pounds. Well, you can do that in a year. I want to build up a whole bunch of muscle. If you say I want to be like The Rock, well, depending on your size, maybe that's more of a midterm goal, 4 to 6 years. But a midterm goal might be something like I want to pay off my car, or like I want to meet someone and get married, and possibly even have kids, depending on how old you are and how fast you want to move with that whole plan. Long-term goals would be something on the order of 20 to 30 years. Well, I guess maybe anywhere between 15 to 30 years. Like I want to have my house paid off. I want to be able to retire. I want to be set in my career. Different things like that. Those are lengthy goals. Honestly, I think it takes anywhere between 10 to 15 years to really be set in your career, which is to say, to fully understand and grasp what it is that you're doing, to know whether or not you're actually happy in your career. Different things like that. To fully be set in place, moving forward, and to be in a position to where you have some measure of authority and some measure of influence in the job that you work. But nonetheless, as I was going through this, it was kind of intriguing because to me, there's such a thing as having individual goals and then having goals that appear as a byproduct of life's surprises, right? So, take me for example. If you were to sit down and ask me, Rob, what are your short-term and your midterm goals on an individual level, right? Like my short-term goals on an individual level is to prepare myself to go back to college and get a degree in history so I can teach on the high school or the college level. The midterm goal is doing what I need to do in order to actually get that, to go back to school. So if I sit down and I say, okay, over the course of the next year, I'm going to sort into two separate categories, everything I need to do in order to get a degree in history and to teach on the high school level. And then I'm going to create a second category on what I need to do in order to do that, but teach on the college level. I'll spend the whole year doing that. Literally organizing everything, structuring everything, getting it all figured out, what classes I need to take, what college credits or what college classes that I took when I went to college before that can be applied towards both of those goals. Get all that stuff sorted out. How much is it going to cost me in total financially in order to pull that off? University of Kentucky is not super cheap, around $8,000 a year for $8,000 a semester for in-state tuition. Multiply that times 2 semesters, that's $16,000. Multiply that times 4, 32, so $64,000 roughly in order to go to the University of Kentucky for 4 years. At least I'm pretty sure that's the case. It might be that it's $8,000 a year. A year, which means that over the course of 4 years, it's $32,000, so half as much. But whatever the case is, it'll cost anywhere between $30,000 to $60,000 to go to the University of Kentucky and get a 4-year degree. You tack onto that the cost of graduate school, getting like a master's degree if it's necessary. Like looking at all that financial cost and saying how much is it going to cost me to pull all that off. All right, so that's a combination of short-term and midterm goals. One of my midterm goals is to look like my dad did when he was at his peak, 315 pounds, somewhere around 10% body fat, and a 415-pound bench press, 3 sets, 15 reps each. So, I want to be able to pull that off, like get huge, like he did. That took him 4 to 5 years, so that's a midterm goal. You look at those personal achievements. Like I want to become an exceedingly talented chef that can cook a wide array of different things. That's a midterm goal, 4 to 6 years in order to pull that off. I want to learn Spanish. Mariah's helped me do that. So that's probably a combination of a short-term and midterm goals. I want to learn how to dance. Maybe I want to learn how to play the piano or something like that. Those are goals that I haven't quite figured out yet. But you guys understand what I'm saying. Like these are individual goals that I've set up for myself that I want to achieve anywhere between the next 1 to 6 years. From there, you get into long-term goals. I want to be able to retire. By the time I'm 48 years old, I want to retire early. I want to have enough money set in retirement to where when that time comes, I'll never have to work for the rest of my life. Those are things that I want to be able to pull off. In this short-term goal, these midterm goals, I want to be able to like travel the world. I want to be able to go see other countries, Rome, Italy, and Rome and Spain. There we go. Maybe Brazil, maybe go see like Thailand, or maybe go see China or Japan or something like that. Those are goals that I want to achieve. Things that I want to be able to do during that time. Now, those are individual goals that I have for myself. Other individual goals was to have a house paid off so I'd never have to worry about a mortgage, different things like that. The funny thing about this is that as life becomes part of the equation, I'm sorry, as the surprises in life become part of the equation, suddenly those goals begin to shift. So now that Mariah is part of the equation, then it turns into, what goals do I want to achieve with Mariah? Now, she's got her own individual goals. She's got her own individual things that she wants to achieve. And so you take those two things and you combine them together, and it's like, okay, how do we continue achieving our own individual goals while sitting down as a couple and trying to find ways to achieve goals together? And maybe some of the goals that we sought to achieve individually become goals that we seek to achieve together. Traveling is a really good example. Mariah, I want to marry Mariah one day. I want to have kids with Mariah one day. I want to settle down and make a life with her. And so with that being the case, then it turns into, before we get to that point, are there things that we want to do? We want to travel. So that means that we take our individual goals of traveling and seeing the world, we combine those together, and suddenly it's a mutual goal that we want to achieve. It helps to strengthen our relationship and make it stronger. Now, of course, again, this is all based on, things that I want to have happen. Who the hell knows what's going to happen with life? Those are ideas that I'd rather not entertain, but it doesn't mean that they're not a possibility. It doesn't mean that they're not a thing to consider. And so with that being the case, it's important that you guys sit down and that you make goals for yourself. It's important that you guys sit down and that you say, okay, here are things that I want to achieve in the short term, in the midterm, and in the long term. And it's important that you sit down and calculate the financial cost to do that, because oftentimes that's what trips people up. People say, well, I want to do like all these crazy things, but they never think about how much money it'll cost to do it. They'll never actually take into account how much time and effort it'll take to achieve that goal. Instead, they're just goals out there somewhere. And also make sure they're goals that are attainable, that are tangible. Because if you don't make them tangible goals, you'll never actually achieve them. And they'll always just turn into things that you've always wanted to do, but never got around to doing. So again, it's very important to do this. It's very important to sit down and to turn these into things that you want to achieve in your life, and also make sure that when the time comes when you find yourself in a relationship, that you don't lose your individual goals, because those go towards making you a better person. Your ambition, your drive, your charisma, that's what attracted that person to you. If you begin to give that up, they'll begin to lose attraction for you, because your drive and your ambition, your charisma, that's what makes you interesting. Your intelligence, things like that, that's what makes you so intriguing and so interesting. That's what keeps the relationship strong. That's what keeps you pushing forward and wanting to make sure you keep the relationship as strong as it can be. Again, having a tried and true discussion on relationships is a whole different video. But the fact remains, you have to have your own individual goals, and you also have to be willing to combine those goals with the goals of others, should the time come when you find yourself in a situation where you're dating someone, you're looking at marriage or something along those lines. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's like this huge spreadsheet that I have with all this stuff. Like I've got a tab for short term, I've got a tab for long term or midterm, and I've got a tab for long term. And that spreadsheet it's not nuts, but it's like pretty complex, if I'm being honest with you guys. I love keeping things organized in terms of the goals that I want to achieve for myself. It's kind of crazy. Maybe I'll take you guys through it one day. I don't know. I mean, I have no idea. But yeah, it's an important thing for me, to make sure that I have my goals lined out, to make sure that I have my own individual goals sorted, to make sure that I'm able to keep track of them, and also to keep an eye on where my life is at the moment and what direction it's going in. But with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. And yeah, I will catch you all later. Peace.